Now, if it's Dogecoin, that's the one you really want to watch out for.
Boy, this person going crazy. Good morning, guys. Brought to you by Pacific Points, IT&E, Jack in the Box, Cabo Enterprises. Good morning. This is the link. 8:58. Let's go in with Child Protective Services now. We have on in the KUAM News Zoom room. Thanks for joining us. Hold on, let me just make sure I get all your names and titles right. Yep, here we go. Of course, there's Peter Santos, who handles investigations. He might be a familiar face. He did a little stint here, a tour here at KUAM as a pretty bang-up investigative reporter, Pete. So, I mean, we're sad to see you go, man, but it really looks like you're trying to do good work over there at CPS. So it's good to have you back here. Right on. And then we've also got Mel Maglotnia, who handles intake and crisis, and she is joined there by Crystal Gooden, who handles case management. Good morning, ladies. Oh, let me turn it on. There we go. Hi.
Good morning.
There you go. And Jolyn is also with investigations, and we're talking Child Protective Services. And, you know, we usually get Director Brennan on, and so when I'd asked Director Brennan to come on yesterday, she said, you know what, let me give you some of the boots on the ground people, right? And I just kind of wanted to start because the director had told me that you all had a really long day yesterday. And when I said, well, why? What happened? She said, ask our investigators and our case management people when they come on the link tomorrow. So we'll just start there. What happened yesterday? Why was it a long day for you guys?
Well, we exerted custody over some minors, and prior to placing them into foster care or relative placement, we actually got them tested and they came out positive. So, you know, we were stuck in a situation where me and Peter were both exposed to these minors, in addition to two of our other staff that assisted us in removing the kids. And so basically today we're in quarantine, and you know, these are things that happen on the job. We're basically really frontline in, you know, going out with GPD, removing these kids and putting our lives at risk and our families' lives at risk. And you know, we do it for the sake of the kids, for their safety, and what do you call it? Me and Peter were out there for the longest time. We're trying to like figure out where we're gonna put kids that, you know, what families would take in kids that are positive and stuff, you know. So we had to figure that out with the director, the deputy director, and our management, which were very supportive in everything we did, and we were able to situate the family and everything. So, you know, I'm really thankful for the support system we have with our supervisor and up.
I told Melanie yesterday when we were texting, I was like, man, your staff, true frontliners. I mean, that right there in the black and white of it. Peter, I want to ask, because you went from like covering the news here to being an investigator with Child Protective Services. And I know that it's definitely different. Right. And I know that there are things that you guys see that you just can't unsee. And it's also so concerning with this pandemic that we see the number of complaints and referrals. I mean, it's just through the roof. And you read about these cases of not just abuse, but neglect, right? Drugged out parents, just really creating the worst living conditions for their kids. So tell us, Peter, what it's like on any given day working for CPS.
You know, the referrals never stop. And that's something that I've always noticed when my mom was working at CPS, is that the referrals never stop and there's always something that happens, you know. And it is unfortunate, you know, that we're in a predicament where face-to-face puts, you know, these kids at risk. But also, when you think about it, there's a lot of kids out there that school is their safe haven. You know, for that 8 hours a day, they're away from the person that's been abusing them. They're away from that kind of trauma that they face on a day-to-day basis, and now they're back. You know, a lot of them locked up with their abusers, and you know, the abuse varies from, you know, physical abuse down to sexual abuse, and it's something that's not an easy thing to have to talk to a kid about. And yeah, I'm working, you know, at KUAM. You see the surface level of it all. You see what you're allowed to see, you know, but working in my position now, you know, I'm actually out there in these homes, smelling the smells, you know, seeing what I see. It's not for the faint of heart. And I've always known that, just because of how my mom always described her work. But to actually see these things and to talk to these kids and to hear their experiences and what they're going through and what has happened to them, or, you know, the real big issue of neglect too, you know, just the kind of living conditions that some of these kids are in. You know, it's really easy to quarantine when you have Wi-Fi and aircon and a bed, but when you're stuck at home and there's nothing, no power, no water, sometimes no roof, no walls, you know, like, some people are living real hard lives, and people don't necessarily see that side of Guam. You know, like, if you're not in it, you don't see that side, that people live in, you know, abandoned buses and things of that nature. It's real hard out there, and especially, you know, like you said, being boots on the ground kind of thing, really being out there. It's definitely something that is a job that people need to be doing, but it's a very hard job that it seems like only a few people want to do.
Jolyn?
So to piggyback on what he was saying, it's basically, you know, for me, it's kind of like when he's talking about the kids in the school, you know, and now that they're back to online. So basically, we have like a bunch of cases, you know, referrals come in, we want to interview these kids, or we kind of contact them through phone. We go out to do home assessment or home visits, and we're not able to do that because we can't locate the home, because there's like a ton of people's houses are not marked or anything. So we want to wait until these kids come into the school so we can go out and investigate there, because that's the only way we can get a hold of them. And it's a struggle for us now, because, you know, we were waiting since the summer to, you know, to tackle these cases, and then, you know, we're back to online. So we were doing as much as we can do, you know, when the school was in session, and what do you call it? But for like the day-to-day basis is basically like tackling the referrals, going out to the homes and making sure, you know, the kids are in a good living condition and there's food in the home and stuff like that. And what do you call it? I'm actually from DYA, and I'm actually just I'm detailed to CPS. I'm one of the 3 social workers that were brought over to CPS to assist. And this work at CPS is honestly totally different from what I was doing at DYA. You know, where you're not working with just the kid, you're working with the entire family. And that's what's a strain on all the social workers, is that you're not just looking for the best interest of that minor and how to keep them safe. You're actually even working with the parents to ensure that they are on track with their goals, to reunify them with their family or with their kids. And, you know, with the stigma, there's actually like a stigma with CPS. You know, people think that we just come in and take the kids, like we want to take the kids, you know. That's not what we want to do. We honestly want to go in there, you know, keep these kids safe. If that means to take them away temporarily, then we would do that. But our main goal is to always reunify them with their families, with their parents, their biological parents. And so when families or parents go like crazy when we're removing these kids, I try to talk them down and let them know, like, hey, we're here to help you. We're not here to make a commotion and traumatize the kids. We want you guys to be civilized and understand that we're here to help. And that's basically it. We're there to help the family as a whole, and not just take kids away for no reason.
Yeah. Peter,
or just because of that.
Peter, you talked about being a KUAM and you see what you're kind of allowed to see, right? But we have seen. I mean, God, it I don't know if it's just as bad, worse than it's ever been, but it's just a lot, story after story. Parents who are putting drugs before taking care of their kids, right? I mean, I want to say there was just like 3 crazy neglect stories in the last couple months, right? So is it, I mean, and we'll fold case management in here, are you guys seeing, because we haven't had school, I mean, obviously there's an increase, but is it as bad as you guys have seen it over there at CPS?
I'm sorry, Chris. Was that question geared towards me?
Sure, yeah. Anybody who wants
case
to.
Management?
Yeah.
Okay, so for case management, pretty much we're this unit that receives all the cases from the crisis unit as well as the investigation unit. So we're the ones that really work with the family in the long term. We do have a lot of court intervention cases. And just because we're in the pandemic, we still have court hearings, progress hearings. We still need to follow up with all the services with families. We still need to make sure that the children are cared for, linked to services.
Are you okay?
Yes.
But I mean, just are you guys seeing like the most cases you've ever seen? Because again, like I said, it just seems like when you see these headlines like 700 referrals increased, that we all saw during the lockdown, the referrals piled up to like about 1,000, right?
So there is an increase of actual cases transitioning over to case management for the past, since I've been here, it's been the most. And because of the cases piling on, we definitely need a lot more social workers in our unit to manage all these cases.
How do you guys not get mad when you go into these scenes? No, I mean, I'm serious, because when we were just looking at the news and even reading the magistrate's documents on a lot of these cases that end up in the court, like, how do you just not go in there and like kick parents' asses? I mean, it's a legit question. I know that you guys probably struggle with those types of issues when you come onto these scenes and you're just like, what the hell is going on?
Like, like when we're starting the investigation and we read the stuff in black and white, it's real hard to soak in sometimes, and it's real hard to kind of like have to keep your composure. But that's part of the job, where we have to be middle of the road and not leaning towards one side or the other. We're not there to say who's guilty and who's not guilty. Our main focal point is to protect the children. And, that's kind of our whole, our whole thing is we're protecting children and strengthening families. And like on a day-to-day basis, like Jolyn said yesterday, we had to exert custody. And, that is something that happens on a day-to-day basis. And you exert custody only when it really, really needs to happen, and it's not a fun thing. It's not something that we want to do. But in those cases, we have to.
Pete, when you use the term, you're using the term exert custody, right? And I know that that's kind of like the professional term. Can you explain to our audience what exactly you mean when you say you guys show up and you have to exert custody?
So if a child's safety or well-being, is at risk to the point where it's become like apparent that the child is not safe in that home, then it's incumbent upon us as Child Protective Services to take that action to place the child under our care, and then we will take the necessary steps to ensure that the child is taken care of. So removing the child from the parent's care into our care and then through our channels.
Jolynn, what's that like when you have to pull these kids away?
Honestly, it's very traumatizing. And my first time having to remove a kid was actually a baby, and it was in the middle of the night, like 11 o'clock. And I just had a baby, so I had to go to my car, get a car seat because our office was closed already. And then carrying that baby out of the precinct, and I'm a nursing mom, and my heart's breaking, because the baby's like, mom, it's crazy. It's traumatizing for us as well. But like Peter said, it's not for everyone. You gotta stay strong. You can't show your emotions at times when you really want to, but when you go home, you kind of cherish your families, and it's something different. And I feel, coming from DYA, that I'm really needed here, and I've been back and forth if I should just stay and stuff like that. But, we all have different missions, and the mission, as long as I'm here at CPS, I'm willing to do this mission, as long as they need me to.
Right. Let me ask Melanie and Crystal, right? So we haven't had face-to-face learning. It's been a couple weeks. It looks like when we do return to it, at least for like the public schools, right, it's going to be hybridized, meaning they're going to have cohorts and then some online. And I know at the school setting is where you have the teachers. They might notice something, whether it's a bruise or a change in temperament with the kids, right? So what can we do out here in the community if the kids aren't in school and the teachers and the counselors and the nurses or, the staff are the ones who see things that kind of trigger involving you guys? What do we out here in the public need to know? What are the signs that we should look out for so that we can kind of stand up in place of what normally happens at the schools?
At CPS, as an intake, right, at the intake crisis level, we take any type of referral. We get a lot of calls and people say, is this enough to make a referral? If you think it's wrong, call, even if it's just the littlest things. These kids have no voices. They may think that what's happening to them is not wrong. And, as an adult, you want to protect these children even from the littlest. So if you see that this child is, how they look scared just by talking to you, or, any little thing, just call, ask questions, say, hey, is this something that should be reported? And, we'll let you know if we need any more information or anything, but we take even the littlest complaint. These children, like you said, they're not in school anymore, and they have nobody to really tell them what's going on. Like Pete said, that's their safe haven school. And, while, just within my experience here, when it was school time, we had the influxes of, calls and intakes from the schools. Then we had summer. And then it was like, it slowed down for a bit. And so every time when it hits school again, we always were bracing for that, for all those calls to be coming in. And so, these kids, they go to school for meals, right? They're neglected at school, at home because they're not being fed. Yeah. And, thank God for these food drives, because if not, they'll still be starving at home. So the community is doing very well with, continuing to give the food, giving, provisions for the children. But it's also the community's part to protect them also, because sometimes the people who are supposed to be protecting them, their parents, aren't doing that. So, Crystal, you want to add?
Crystal?
So, anybody in the community can really make the referral. They can either call us at our office during working hours. They can come to our office and show up and say, I want to make a referral. We also receive faxes. They can also go to GPD and inform them like, hey, I have a suspicion of some kind of abuse or neglect. And then, of course, all GPD officers can go ahead and make contact with CPS, especially after hours, on weekends.
And just to add, some people, they're very scared because they don't want, Guam is a small island and they don't want to be known who's making the report.
Yeah.
But CPS, we're very, our biggest thing is, confidentiality. We don't release the persons who's reporting. And, sometimes people, they want to remain anonymous, which is fine.
Yeah.
But sometimes we do encourage them just to let us know, just because if we have any questions, we can call them back, But if you guys see anything, please call either CPS on working days. If not, after hours, go to GPD, make a complaint.
Pete and Jolyn, when you guys are, running your investigation of these cases and you come across these instances where kids are either abused, whether it's, physical, verbal, sexual, neglected, and you interview the parents, right? Like, what are some of the things that they say? What are their reasons or their excuses?
As far as like the neglect is concerned, some families are just okay with a certain standard of living, and that standard of living is not conducive to, a growing child. Not having the right amount of food. Like, we keep going back to school, but yeah, not only is school a safe haven, but sometimes that's where some of these kids get their food.
Yeah.
That's, they don't eat at home and they have to eat at school. Some families just don't have it, just don't have the money. And you'd be surprised to see how many families there are on Guam that are legitimately starving, like really just not having any food, and we've done food drives and stuff like that with the mayors and stuff. But, just in the short period of time that I've been working at CPS, I've seen kids that really just, forage for food from whatever tree is around or whatever chickens laying eggs around. It's a reality that not too many people know about as far as the neglect. And then with the physical abuse, it's not something that's easy to talk to a child about. And it's also not something easy to talk to a parent about, because you can imagine if somebody asks you if you hit your kid, people have their defense mechanisms, and they'll say, oh, this didn't happen, when it clearly shows that something, occurred.
Jolyn?
So basically, honestly, a lot of the parents deny all the allegations that are against them in the referrals. But if we interview all the children, and their stories are corroborating, then if like it is physical abuse and we do see the markings on the kids, then we're gonna do something about it. We don't have to have the parents disclose. That's up to the judge if it goes that route. But Chris, I also want to make it clear that we don't exert every case. So if we go out to a home and find out that they're starving, we'll do things in our power to try to link these families with the commodities and whatnot. I'll even go out to whatever mayor that's in where they're living at, and request if we can get commodities for them and drop it off. But, and then also just push the families to apply for SNAP benefits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we try our best, honestly, to work it out of the court system. And that's our main goal, is to try to work it out of the court. So the court system is not like is only addressing really serious cases and not just petty things like something that can be resolved through SNAP benefits and stuff like that.
I mean, it's got to be so heartbreaking when Pete, you talk about there's so many families starving out here, right? I mean, that is the reality. So when you show up to a scene and it's just simply that mom or dad or whoever is watching these kids just doesn't have enough money to put food on the table, right? How is that different from these other cases you hear about where so and so is beating up a kid because they ate the good food out of the refrigerator?
So I believe I heard a quote through Jolyn from a judge where she said, last time I checked, being poor isn't a crime, and that's kind of the reality of it, to where sometimes people just don't have it, and that's not their fault. If you can see that the mom or dad clearly loves the kids and provides them and showers them with love and whatever they can give. The guy goes and bush cuts here and there. Mom tries to, be a maid and clean up just so that she can make whatever cash that she can. You see people try, but it's, some people are just, disadvantaged in that way. And that's where the social services part comes out, where we try and link them to those services and connect them, with all these different housing options and, like Jolyn said, the SNAP benefits. So it's drastically different from, the neglect that happens because you don't have versus the neglect that happens because you don't care. It's a drastic difference, especially in the way that you see the relationship between the parent and the child, and we're speaking on all these referrals that we have and all these referrals that we're getting. And fact of the matter is that it's something that needs to be tackled. And these situations need to be addressed, but we also need the staff to do that, and it's really hard to do that with whatever small teams that we have.
Yeah. What about drugs? Let's the issue of drugs. Melanie and Crystal, we'll just start there.
So drug is a really big risk factor. We do get a lot of referrals for I call them ICE babies, babies that are testing positive for methamphetamines. And, these moms, I could say maybe out of my week, I could get maybe like four positive babies within the week. And so we go out and we assess these babies. We go to the hospitals, and we figure out, we talk to the parent and say like, what was your situation and everything like that. We have to make sure that the provisions are there before the baby is released. A lot of these parents, because of their situation, they do resort to drugs. And sometimes they don't know that, it's affecting their children because, they're high. They need to fix themselves before, make them feel good. And, their children are just, suffering from that. And they don't see that. These children's emotionally, right? They see their mom and dad and, they're like, oh, mom and dad are happy, but then in a way, right, they're really high or, and then they get neglected. But the drug cases are rising. Even if we get referrals for physical neglect or physical abuse, there's always drugs that's involved all the time. And so, we're really trying to tackle the drug issue through education or, through sometimes some type of ways to reduce it. But, it's all up to the parents. We can only do so much. We can only give them the services and the tools, but it's up to them to really want to change for their children. And sometimes the drug is more powerful than the love for their children.
A lot of times, right? Peter and Jolyn,
Yes.
your comments on the involvement of drugs in a lot of these cases that you respond to?
like how Mel was saying about babies testing positive for methamphetamines, that's one of the hard things that I've had to see. Like, it is not easy to see a baby high on meth, and just kind of out of this world. And it takes adults, a while to come down from a meth high. And you can imagine what it's like for a baby that doesn't know anything and is just kind of subjected to this because of the parents' negligence, and just in the investigation side of it, we do see a lot of drug use, and that's part of the hazardous nature of the job. We end up going into these homes, going to talk to these parents many times without GPD or anybody, or without any way to protect ourselves. But we go to these places where these parents, have a history of drug use, have a history of, assault and things like that. And sometimes it's just me and Jolene going out. And, you can imagine somebody who's either on drugs or, is just coming off a high, when you tell them that I'm here to talk to you about, your child, I'm from Child Protective Services, the anger and the situation that puts us in as workers, and so just the hazardous part that drugs plays from our social worker standpoint it's up there.
Jolyn?
So, Chris, honestly, I didn't know the drug problem on Guam was actually this bad until I came to CPS. And, it's crazy because I used to work at a youth drug and alcohol facility at one point, before coming to DYA. And I just use, honestly, my skills that, I've taught these kids when I was there, and my experience to try to help these parents as well, making them realize that the drug is taking over their families, and it's either your family or the drugs. You cannot have a balance there. It's either one or the other, and sorry, going back to what Mel said earlier, that she has like 4 babies in a week of ICE babies, and man, there was this one day that there was like 11 kids we needed to place, and like 4 of them were ICE babies. And it got to the point where we couldn't find placement, and I was actually going to take one of the babies home, because we really couldn't. And I just wanted to put it out there to anyone interested in fostering, these kids, that we really need your help. And honestly, all of our foster homes are pretty much at max capacity, and I can't say it enough that we really need you guys to reach out to us and become a foster family if your background is clear and you have the heart to do that for these kids.
What's the number they call to become a foster parent?
475-2653.
All right. And can we just go into I had one more question for you guys, but so when you become a foster parent, what do you God, I don't want to sound cold, but what do you get? I know you get the kids, but is there compensation involved?
Yes, we do. So they have a monthly stipend. When you're licensed, you do get a monthly stipend per child. That's just to help offset some costs, right? With clothing, they do get a clothing allowance also. We try to help as much as possible. As far as even with applying for food stamp or for SNAP benefits or putting them under Medicaid. Those are the type of things that as a foster parent you're able to do.
What's the process as far as getting licensed to actually become a foster parent?
You submit an application. You guys can stop by or here at the Terlaki building, Suite 309. Pick up an application, and then submit the proper documents. Go through a background check. Making sure that you're able to provide for these children and not place them into a home where financially you're not able to do it, and then they're back to square one. So a thorough background is conducted.
And it's also important to know that you can foster as a single person aside from couples. Correct. So the licensing social worker is Sarah Senior if they have additional questions
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the process and what entails to become licensed.
And there's also called emergency foster parents, where you can decide if you can hold them for 3 days. When we go out for crisis in the middle of the night and we need a placement, those are the kind of foster parents that we call for. If you can hold them for 2-3 days, sometimes these foster parents or these possible foster parents, they think that I have to hold them for
Right.
for such a long time,
Yeah.
and that's not the case. It's really up to them if they're able to do it or not. So if you guys are willing.
Right. So they basically need all kinds, guys. Like I said, the current number of foster parents we have, that pretty much seems like they're at capacity. So they need foster parents to hold kids as they transition between homes. They need foster parents to hold on to kids maybe in a more long-term fashion. It's 475-2653. Guys, this interview is killing me. Right, but it's necessary for people to hear this. It's so uncomfortable, but there's people got to know, because like you said, Pete, the news, we just know what we're allowed to know. But there has to be, I pray to God, there has to be some type of silver lining, some type of blessing that you guys come across when you do this job. So let's end there. Let's just go around robin and talk about something rewarding, something positive that you've experienced working for CPS. Jolyn?
Man, Chris, I think I'm having some internet issues. So you're kind of breaking up here and there.
Okay.
Can you reach someone on? And then,
Yeah, we'll go to Melanie. Melanie and Crystal.
I can share mine.
Sure.
I had a case for 2 years. Minor had guardians, and then guardians couldn't take over, and we reunited with her biological mother. And the biological mother, she had her issues, her drugs, everything like that, but she fought for her daughter. She did every means possible to get her daughter back, and it did take 2 years, but at the end, it was so rewarding when you hear the court saying, what's it called, parental rights restored back to the parent. It's a nice, I got goosebumps, because I was like, 2 years of working so hard, she's finally back with her mom, and their relationship, you could see the relationship between the daughter and the mom. For the girl wasn't with her parent for maybe like a year already, and so just seeing that their relationship grow within 2 years and it becomes stronger, that's why I do what I do. And it's a great feeling when you reunite families together.
Crystal?
I actually agree with Mel. Because I'm in case management, the satisfaction of ensuring that the goal is always reunification. And unfortunately, in the unit I'm in, you don't see a lot of reunifications. And when we actually get to that point, it's one of the best feelings to see that the family has, from where the parents were in the beginning to where they're at the end, where everyone is happy, healthy, safe. And, the goal is always to prevent further instances why they came into the CPS, right? And for cases that are long-term, as far as like long-term foster, the rewards is when our children actually get to the point of 18 and graduate from high school and go on to moving on to better things, because sometimes that does happen. We do have a lot of cases where it's long-term foster, and a lot of kids don't have that stability, and wherever they're at, if they can overcome all these different challenges, then sometimes we have kids that decide that by the age of 16, 17, they run away because CPS hasn't helped their family. They end up dropping out. But it's trying to encourage our kids to to graduate is one of the biggest issues too that we face.
Right. Jolyn, the question is, what's your silver lining? What's your blessing in doing this work every day? Unmute. Sorry, my lip reading is a little off.
So honestly, my blessing is just basically just doing my part in this world, as little as protecting these kids, or actually, ever since graduating, I kind of kids has always been my passion. And so just seeing the success or bumping into these once then kids and then now adults, and they have their own families and they're doing well for themselves and their kids.
That's very key. Let's go ahead and close here with Peter. Peter.
So, growing up, I've always, whenever I stopped by mom's office, I would always see these drawings, some given to her by her clients, like kids drawing with crayon and stuff. Thank you, Miss Rose, for saving us. Thank you for hearing us. Just all these nice depictions, and I always thought it was pretty cute. And now that I'm experiencing the same kind of thing, especially in the investigative portion of it, where we're actually like really having to ask these kids questions and talk to them and really bring this stuff out of them, it's really something else when a kid tells you thank you for hearing them out. When in reality, a lot of the times there's families that say, oh, your dad's just playing around with you like that, or oh, that's not what he meant, or that's not what he tried to do, or oh, you're just lying. A lot of people don't believe these kids, and a lot of times they feel like they're not heard, like they're gonna have to suffer in silence. And for a kid to kind of look at you in the eye and tell you, thank you for actually taking the moment, taking the time to understand me and hear me, it's fulfillment in its own way, and it's something that I like about the job. It's just that knowing that you're out there actually doing the good work, helping out. Like I told you before I left KUAM, we were talking about, CPS had this backlog of cases, they need so many social workers. Anybody just call the number and become a social worker, if you have a degree. And I told you, like, being in the news and constantly having to say that and hear that, it was like saying, hey, everybody, there's a fire over there. There's a fire over there, but nobody's going to put out the fire. And it feels good to actually, be a part of the team to fight that good fight and do our part, whatever we can do to help the kids of the island.
Well, Pete, your mom commented, God bless you all. Stay safe. Former Guam CPS social worker. Awesome job. Thank you all. Peter's mama. And truly, man, thank you guys. This is tough, but I think it's got to be heard. If I had my way, I'd have you guys on every day, but I know you got important work to do, so we're going to let you go do it. And thank you so much for your service. Right on. Man, 9:41. We're going to take a break, and we're coming back with Jason Salas and Humanities Guahan next, right here on the link. Good morning.
KUAM Digital presents a series.
We know you're tired of hearing about COVID-19. Some of you are probably wondering whether this is ever going to end. However long it takes, we all have to do our part, including our children, to hold the line. You can protect yourself and your family by getting vaccinated.
And if you're already vaccinated, don't let your guard down, because you can still give and get COVID-19. And if you're not vaccinated, remember that if you catch the virus, you could suffer more severe complications. At the end of the day, it's the choices we make to protect ourselves, our families, in our community that will control the spread.
We know it sounds repetitive at this point, but again, wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear your mask.
Together, we have to hold the line. The KUAM Podcast Network is back and on demand, featuring a great variety of podcasts from our island and region, including culture, lifestyle, awareness, crime, politics, commentary, comedy, and entertainment. Available on most streaming platforms. The KUAM Podcast Network. Subscribe and listen now.
KUAM TV has been on the air for 65 years. 65 years of growing, changing,